Welcome to Equal Inspired, the inclusive podcast, brought to you by Equal IT.
Madona Wambua joins us, who is the Chief Technology Officer at Axelist, founder of Jibu Labs, and award-winning technology expert who has been named in the top 50 Women's Success of Influence by Success magazine. With a prolific career spanning over 10 years, Madona excels as an accomplished author, a sought-out-for technical keynote speaker, and a Google developer expert in Android. Madona is also a Women Tech Makers Ambassador, advisory council member for the Strategic AI Certificate Program at Mercer University, and co-chair of AnitaB.org.
Thank you for inviting me. This is awesome. I'm super excited.
In true Equal Inspired style, we would love to know who or what is inspiring you at the moment.
Wow, that's a great question. And I feel like I'll say this a lot too, because I know all your questions are going to be great. But I think the person that really inspires me a lot is my kids and my mom. I mean, we're a big family. I'm the firstborn. We're 6 of us, 3 girls, 3 boys, pretty big family. So every time I think about how my mom was able to raise all of us, I'm like, she did that, you know? And my kids look up to me, and every tiny thing that I do, it's like I'm a superhero. Like, Mom, this is great. This is good. And now I've mastered the art where I bring them to my talks. And everywhere we go, guess who claps for me first? My kids. So actually, I think, sorry to deviate a little bit, but when we're in Seattle, my son would clap all the time. And everybody would wait. I know it was a bit distracting, but everybody would be like, yeah. Then I told him, hold on, you have to wait for me to finish. So yeah, I would say my mom and my kids.
I absolutely love that you bring your kids to your talks and that they're your biggest supporters. You are a huge role model for them.
Those who don't know, those who've not been to my talks, I have 2 boys. And one thing that I noticed is that we need allies in tech, especially now with the organization even being closed. We just need more allies. And to me, I think every time I bring them, I'm building this culture where when they get big position in the future, they will think back and see how their mom did and probably support women. So hopefully more moms who are listening can do that too. Just bring your kids along. Let them learn that, hey, we need more allies out here.
Oh yeah, bringing them into your world, it ignites that curiosity. It enables that sense of allyship because it's the norm for them, seeing inspiring women like their mum and maybe so many others on the stage. It helps so much to shape allies. So important. And if we were to go back to the beginning of your journey, reflect a little bit on what was it that sparked your interest in tech?
It's pretty funny because my first dream was not to become a software engineer, but I'm a curious person. My first dream was to become an aeronautical engineer. Why? I loved the planes. I mean, think about it, right? Like that big thing can fly over the oceans. And let me tell you the truth, I didn't know what kilometers were. But when I heard 3,000 or 10,000 kilometers, I'm like, that is pretty far. And that thing just flies up there like a bird. Who made it? So I wanted to be the person that makes something pretty cool. Now, there's a lot of story, of course, involved in that. Now, funny thing is that we always don't end up becoming what we wanted when we were young. But I got a laptop. And when I got a laptop, I was like, hold on. Now, who made this laptop? If I'm able to see all these cool things happening, what is this? So I started digging into how are laptops made. The person who makes a laptop, what are they called? So I ended up studying software engineering based on the fact that I learned that actually there's something called computer engineering and there's hardware, and then it was amazing. Now, how I ended up in what I'm doing now, which is mobile for many years, is I got my phone and then it had a snake game. Of course, I was curious about how the phone was made too. But the snake game was really, really interesting to me. So I was like, hold on, who made a snake game? Can I make this? And that's how I ended up in mobile. So as you can see, it's been curiosity leading the way for me, even where I am right now. And sometimes that makes me wonder, so now that I've done the things that I wanted to do, what is there next for me, right? Like, what other curiosity do I have that I might invent or do something pretty cool. So that's something that I keep reinventing over and over.
Curiosity is leading the way for you, and it's such a driving force for discovery. Where did this curiosity stem from, do you think?
Oh my goodness, don't even ask that, because I think it's inborn, because my son, both of them, oh my goodness, every day I get questions about everything. Now, I think the reason why I said it's inborn, it's because I noticed the same curiosity I had, my kids have it. So my son is 7, my little son is 7, my bigger one is 9. And every time we do any little thing, it's like, okay, Mom, what is that? And how is that done? And what is the meaning? Like, and I can't ignore it. If I do, he sensed it because he's grown up now, and he's like, he just gives me a side eye. Like, he knows, like, literally I ignored it. So I try to make sure that I explain, or I say, if I don't know, I say, hey, how about we ask Google? So we keep asking Google so many questions. But hey, I think I would say it's inborn.
Curiosity, what a great thing to pass down to your kids. It's awesome that they draw this from you. And look, you can't go wrong with a Google search here and there. I am definitely an advocate of that. Family is very important to you. You're juggling a lot of different roles: mother, wife, podcast host, author, entrepreneur. And that's not even the full list, let me just say. Do you have any specific routines that help you to balance wearing those hats that have contributed to your success?
I mentioned this before, but I know it's my superpower is that I do not procrastinate. If something's needed, I know it's needed. I have to do it. So I'm not the kind of person that looks at a problem and says, okay, this problem is easy, I'm going to do it fast, and this problem is hard, I'm going to do it last. What I do is I tackle it immediately. I try to solve it as it comes, because I've realized that really helps a lot to move faster as compared to you waiting and saying, okay, this is easy, maybe I can do it after I've done them, because there's different approaches of how you can solve a problem. Now, how this has helped is, for instance, in writing my book, I was actively speaking and also writing the book, and I realized the book was needed and there was a deadline, so I knew I had to write. In fact, it was within 1 year, but I completed it, like, let's say, in 9 months. So I can give myself enough time for the reviews and all the feedback. So what I would say is that, number one, understanding your part is very important. Now, the other thing is that why do we procrastinate, right? Most of the time, because that I do mentoring too. And one of the biggest issues that I've heard is that, how do I move away from procrastination? And one of the solutions I normally tell my mentees is that, first of all, you have to identify what is really dragging you behind. For instance, one of my mentees that we were talking with, I noticed that I asked her, how much time do you spend on your phone, for instance? Because sometimes it's those minor things that we do that really make us feel like we're not doing what we should be doing. And we looked at the phone, and we discovered that she spends 8 hours on her phone. And I think if you're listening today, just go try to check how much hours you spend on your phone, because it's very important. And I asked her, so you spend 8 hours, and I'm sure it's not consecutive, like where you stay for 8 hours on the phone. No, it's little times that you get distracted and go to your phone and maybe spend 1 hour, put it down again, go back 1 hour. Before you go to bed, that's already 8 hours. And others actually go more than even 16, which is terrible. So one of the things that I told her is that you need to look at that approach and discover, why are you doing that? I think it's called don't scroll. It's a thing. It's actually a thing. And it does waste our time. So few things that I know I do best is that, like, first, in my phone, I spend 3 hours maximum a day, which I'm not proud of. I need to go to 2 hours and lesser. But when you think about it, that really gives me that leeway where I can do a lot of stuff, right? Because every time I go to these social medias, I'm always asking myself, what am I looking for? And it ends up being I'm not looking for anything. So I need to go back to do my work or to do what I'm doing. So in a current age, I feel like that's what might really cause us not be able to balance, but it's not a lot of work. We can do these things. They're not so much to do. Now, the other part where it's traveling and also, let's say, juggling family, I've integrated that in a way that the traveling, I can bring my kids, right? That's why I bring my kids to talks. My kids now been to 8 states already. I think more than 10 actually, in 3 countries. So to us, it's more like traveling together and also just enjoying these sessions and just them learning. So I feel like I've found a way to merge together. For my husband, I don't bring him all the time because he has this job too, but he's okay. So finding also a supportive partner is very, very crucial. I feel like we don't talk about this a lot, but it really, really helps. So I would say definitely look at what's making you not move as fast as you would want. And also look at what is making you procrastinate. Because if you're not achieving what you want to achieve, then what's making you not achieve it? And once you identify that, I feel it's going to become easier.
Okay, so reflect, identify, and then tackle the procrastination, because I feel we can often procrastinate as well when maybe we're scared. If something is a little bit anxiety inducing, it's uncomfortable, it's the unknown, we can put that off. I'll do it tomorrow. And next thing you know, a month has gone by and that task still hasn't been done. Madona, you've been able to adapt and bring your worlds together when it comes to your kids, events, speaking, giving them some great experiences at these events too. So I'm curious, as someone who brings their kids to events, what more can event organizers do to cater to parents, to caregivers who have kids, to enable them to feel more welcome and that they can bring them along so they're not missing out?
That's a great point, because as we speak, I'm also expecting my third baby.
Oh, congratulations.
Which means that I'll have 3 kids now to come with me if I go to more conferences. But that's something that I've always thought. I don't think I'll be able to, because we don't have that environment where it supports mothers who have young kids. And I think I've gone to conferences where I've seen mothers with little kids just walk throughout the conference carrying them. But I can speak for Anita B because I'm a co-chair, and I think we have a program where mothers can actually leave their kids. It's like, how can I call it? Like a daycare of some sort. So if you have a baby that you're coming in, you have to fill out the information in advance and request that particular access. So then you can take your kid to stay there as you do all your work in the conferences, because it will not make sense that you keep working with your baby everywhere. However, other conferences that I've been to don't do that. And I understand sometimes it might be the constraints, let's say money constraint, but I feel like as we factor in planning, we have to be accessible, because remember, this is accessibility too. Because if you cannot provide a mother or a father that's caring for their baby an opportunity to come to the conference, then we're limiting them from these resources, which number one may be learning or even connecting and networking, which is very important and very vital in our careers, right? So I would highly just recommend anybody that's organizing events or planning just to have that in mind. I don't think it can cost a lot. If you're charging, let's say, $150 for someone to come to your conference, you should be able to take maybe $30 and put it into childcare if somebody has kids. And most of them will not have kids, but the fewer that have, just be accessible.
Yeah, plan with accessibility in mind for all circumstances. And it's just good to know that it's an option and that they are welcomed. There's a space for them, because I feel sometimes people don't even know if they can bring their kid or if they're caring for somebody along. So something just like a simple statement on your website of the event or on the ticket sales of the event, showcasing that you welcome, you encourage, you cater a space for them, could make the biggest of difference.
We're not in 2010, it's 2024. We have to be accessible. Accessibility it's very broad. And I feel like, to me, if I'm not, as a speaker or even as an attendee, if I'm not given that possibility, then it's limiting me, right? Because there's ways that I know maybe my speaking helps me grow, or even my learning, because I want to keep speaking. I'll go to other sections where I can learn. But if I can't do that just because I have babies, I think that's unfair.
On that topic of children, I still have these reoccurring conversations, and it's really sad, but it's around this fear of stepping into parenthood and your career and what it means for your career, and this idea that the two simply just can't merge together. What would you like to demystify here, Madona? Because you're doing it.
First of all, it's a myth. Like you said, it's a myth, and I think it has to be demythed. Is that even a word? We've invented that word. Yes, demyth. Yeah. Because I think it's very possible. Now, I have to admit though, in the beginning, let's say you have a little baby, 1 to 2 years, it's not going to be easy because this is when the baby needs you a lot. Now, but after that, it's very possible. And even within the, let's say the 2 years, it doesn't mean that the baby will cling on you such a way that you can't do anything. No, you can balance. Now, if it's speaking, for instance, if it's traveling, for instance, people travel with the little kids. And again, also I feel like part of it is what we just spoke about, right? There not being accessibility in many of these events. Because if it was accessible, I mean, why not? I can bring baby and just leave her for a few hours and go give a talk or connect with other people and then go back and get the baby. Because remember, even in maternal leave, you have like 3 months, maybe to 4 months. But after that, you are expected to go back to work. Now, I also respect when people take full time, like let's say they can take 2 years or a sabbatical to raise their kids. It's very important too. If somebody wants to go that route too, it's okay. What I normally say is that make sure you're not disconnected from your community. Now, one way that somebody can do great thing, even if you're doing a sabbatical, is, hey, look into women in tech networks. Look at what are they doing? How can I participate? How can I continue collaborating? Just a community. It's very important. Now, the other thing that I like to mention is that it's okay if somebody decides, hey, I also don't want kids because I feel like it will affect my career. Because again, it's what works for you. Because if you're not mentally ready, I think you will struggle. So you have to be mentally ready and it works out. Because I mean, look at me. I have my kids. And also the other myth is I see this a lot on Twitter, and I don't respond a lot on Twitter because I think people on Twitter are not willing to reason. I don't know. Twitter can be always a really brutal. Yeah, it's a very weird place where if you share your sentiment, people will like attack you, not even want to reason about it. But I've seen that a lot where, oh, travel now because when you get kids, you will not be able to travel. Are you kidding me? What do you mean? Okay, I understand a few things. It might be financial constraint. Yeah, that can happen where when you're traveling solo, it's cheaper, right? But when you add kids, it becomes expensive. Maybe that's the reason. But it's good to say that's the reason behind it. But don't just say, when you get kids, you will never travel. Like, travel now because I've traveled, like, my kids have gone to now over 10 states where sometimes we fly. Most of the time, actually, we fly. And sometimes we drive. I think we've driven to Boston, which is closer, and Washington, D.C., which is also closer to New York, where we live. But international flights, I've paid for them. So I think we can do it. Like, you can fly, you can travel everywhere with your kids. It's just how you budget. So unless it's, that's why sometimes I feel like I can't say things without thinking maybe it's a constraint for that someone who's saying that. So just bluntly saying, don't do this because people, you will never, it's not fair. So I would like to say that's also a myth. Once you get kids, you can travel everywhere and bring them. It's super fun.
This is why it's so important to share stories on this. Of course, what works for one doesn't work for everybody else, but we often hear about the doom and gloom of it all. We don't hear about the things that go well or how people merge their worlds together and make it work. Again, what works for one doesn't work for another, but it's good to hear about those so we can trial and error and see what suits us best. Community, staying connected with community is something that helped you and that you're really passionate about, especially around advocating diversity, equity, and inclusion. Why is this so important to you?
I think it ties to a lot of things that we've spoken about, like look at even the traveling, right? The inclusion part, right? Like, people think it's not inclusive to bring kids, or people think if you have kids, you cannot become a leader or you cannot lead an organization. But actually, that's not true, because when you look at even CEO, like the Wambua CEOs, she has a family, she has a little kid. She brought a kid, I think, to the belt thing, which was super awesome. So I think for me, what diversity and inclusion means is just being very welcoming to other people. And the software industry world is not as welcoming. I mean, I speak of America, which I don't know about your area, because each area is very different. But here, it's every company you work with, you find you end up being the only female or the only Black female, which can be pretty tough and demoralizing because as a mother, I've realized that most of the time, I've not worked with women who were even mothers like me, who'd understand me. And for the other companies that I worked with all male. Like if there was a woman, she didn't have any kids, so she couldn't understand me. And if it was in other companies, it was all male, so I was the only female. So you find that there's many things that are going to be very differentiative, right? Because first of all, I will need to take some time to take my kids to the, let's say, doctor's appointment. I mean, this is life. I mean, everybody enjoys their life differently, but I feel like it becomes difficult when you, let's say, tell your boss, hey, I will take some time off. I need to take, maybe your boss doesn't have many kids and they're like, why do you keep doing that? So I think diversity really means understanding other people's perspective, wearing their shoes. I mean, you don't need to have kids to understand that this person will encounter this kind of scenarios, right? It's just being empathetic too. I feel like that's also a big word, but diversity has to revolve around those things, like being inclusive, understanding where somebody comes from, and also saying, actually, you know what? I can do better, because we can build by ourselves. And I feel like that's what pushes many people to leave or even burn out and leave their jobs. But I was like, look, if I leave, this is what I like. You've heard about my curiosity, so then I'm not gonna be built in what I wanted to be built in, right? So I had to find a way to stay, and the community really helped me a lot. Just the community, speaking to other women, knowing that actually they experience the same.
I resonate so much with community, just being that guiding light when there can feel like this continual dark grey cloud hanging over you. And there's power in speaking, in reaching out, sharing your stories, because with that, you do tend to realize that you're not alone and you can uncover solutions. But when you're in it, when you're going through it, it can feel like a terribly lonely space. So community is certainly such a guiding light. And with any adversities comes that essence of resilience. And I mean, is there a winning formula for resilience? I'm certainly still trying to figure that out. It's not easy at times. But for folks who want to build that resilience muscle, what has worked for you? What advice can you share that's kept you energized outside of community?
I feel like it's the passion. It has to be the passion. That's the only key to really resilience. And this is why. When you think about something, you have to know why you wake up every day and go to work, right? Like, why do you want to build whatever you're building? Why do you want to work with the people you're working with? First of all, if you don't like what you're doing, if you don't like where you're working, there's no way you will stay. And that's a fact. Because you'll be like, what is my next move? Where do I go next? So we can't build resilience without having that passion. So passion actually is what ignites the resilience, if you ask me. So for me, it was more of the passion of knowing that I really love what I'm doing, right? And all the time, my husband will ask me, and I'm going to reference him, like, do you like what you do? And every time I would say, yeah, I enjoy what I do. Because it's all about, do you like what you do? If you don't like it, I don't think you can stay in it. So I would say, if that's the case, just find something that really makes you happy. And that is something I do also tell my mentees a lot, which is, are you sure that you want to do, let's say, web? What it really sparks your interest in web, or what sparks your interest in mobile, or what sparks your interest in, let's say, machine learning and AI. So definitely understanding where your passion lies is very, very important. So I don't think there's a recipe to that other than knowing your passion and deciding, yes, I think I love this and I see myself doing this for maybe a couple of years.
That's so important, knowing your why, letting that drive you, but also reflecting on your why, because your why can change and that's okay. But I love that passion ignites this resilience. And within this big umbrella of community, Madona, please tell me more about the initiatives that you're involved with.
I love TikToks with Madona, which is, I decided to do it because I'm very busy, as you noticed, so I can't maintain a community. So I decided, how about I just do this podcast where I can meet amazing women and we just talk about tech and the challenges and just share with other women out there. And I think that really worked for me, where right now I think I've recorded over 40 episodes, which is amazing. That's 40 women. and all of them shared different experiences. So I would say that's one of my amazing projects that I'm happy to, because I don't have to manage the community. It's just I have a LinkedIn page, and then I have a Spotify and all the others where we just upload, and that's it. The other thing I like to do is, as an expert in Android, I have a community in Android where we meet from time to time, and it's super fun. And what we do is I like to review the APIs and also like to help the people who want to jump into mobile, like understand mobile better. And I think that has really helped me a lot to like stay up in my technical world. The other thing is mentoring and also being involved in, let's say, a Need a Be and just local communities around me. That really helps me a lot, because in terms of a co-chair for a Need a Be, I get to review content for all the speakers that submit their talks, which is super amazing, just looking at all the talk proposals and how we have so many great ideas out there. And then when the people get accepted, I'm like, yes, I love the fact that that was accepted. The thing is just mentorship. I like to mentor a lot from time to time. And I've been doing a lot of visits around just New York, just at the universities, mentoring students and going to theirs to support their communities. That's why I have a philosophy that I don't think, and I feel like this might be a little bit controversial, but I see many people from time to time talk about how I want to get paid to speak. It's okay for corporate to get paid, but for communities, it's okay to go and support your community and also give back to your community. Otherwise, we end up becoming, I know capitalism is a thing, so we end up becoming very mentally pioneered or driven by money, and that's not something that I represent. So I don't represent that. Every time somebody invites me to speak in a community, I agree to it immediately. However, I have to say, when I do my travels internationally or even around the US, where it's my technical talks and mobile, I'm an expert, so that's already catered for, like paid for in advance.
I'm completely on the same page with you with regards to community. Everything that we do at Equal IT community-wise as well is an absolute labor of love. We just care about paying it forward.
I said that point because I've noticed now every time I looked at LinkedIn, it's everybody saying, I'm not doing any free speaking again. And I'm like, wait. It's okay. That's someone's perspective. Like I mentioned, I don't respond to some of the things because I'm like, I don't want to be taken out of context, yet I know what I mean, and I try to stay away from such. But to me, I feel like when it comes to community, it's always good to give back, because it doesn't have to be money driven. Everything doesn't have to be surrounded by money, Like corporate speaking, yeah, if you're a corporate, let's say a company like Google, Microsoft, or Amazon, or any other company invites you to speak with us, that's okay. Definitely ask for compensation, And normally that happens for me too. I mean, I've been compensated by a couple of companies when they invite me to speak at the event, and I'm like, okay, this is different. But if a community person reaches out to me, I never ask them to pay me.
I think the frustration comes from folks being invited to talks, but feeling more like they're ticking a box. They've been invited simply to tick that box or that quota. Let's say they have expertise in a technical area and there's a space for that at the event, but they have just been asked to speak on a diversity panel or speak about women in tech, for example. And I understand why that is a frustration, because so many amazing women out there can deliver so many epic technical talks. So I do see that on LinkedIn. And needtobe.org is huge. I'm always seeing posts around the Grace Hopper conference and the positive things that people have to say. But for the audience who may not be so aware of needtobe.org, could you share a little bit more on what this community is?
Yeah, it's a pretty big community, and it's for WomenX in STEM. And it's a conference where people come, get hired, listen to senior people, just what they're doing. Like, there's so many things that you can learn at the Grasshopper. Mostly, though, I feel like students tend to love it because there's a lot of recruiting happening. And from the time we attended it back in the days, it's always been very positive. Where you go, you meet so many other people, many great connections, and you can get a job instantly. Or you can get like a next step, which is super amazing. But apart from that, there's more stuff that are catered to senior engineers and also like C-suite level people where you can go meet other C-suite women and make the connection. So I think to me, it's more about the community building and meeting new people, which is what we want, right? We want to meet new people. Now that you asked that, I know I've seen a lot of people complain about people not getting paid to speak there. I think that's one of the ones where people should definitely get paid to speak, because that's different from the kind of communities I'm talking about.
Yeah, I get that. And I know you review call for papers submissions for the event. You received tons for the Grace Hopper conference. What pieces of advice can you share to someone to make their CFP really stand out?
So there's outlines of things that I expected from you. I think this year they even had like a enter video to be considered, which I thought was pretty cool because you can talk through your presentation. And that actually, as a reviewer, when I was looking at it, I thought that was pretty cool because I'm able to see the person's talk like come to life, because the person is very excited to give that talk because they explain what the talk is about. The other thing I would say, there's a lot of jargon that I've seen from a couple of proposals where people think having sophisticated terms is what's going to make you get in, but I feel like that loses the point. So if it's a good brief of what you're trying to do, just be precise and to the point. What are you trying to do? What is the topic? And what will people gain from attending that particular session, right? And the other thing I would say, especially for the competitive ones, which are career, I would say definitely if it's a career, just think from a different angle. I've never given talks in career, but I've seen so many proposals based on career. So I would say definitely it's even the most competitive one as compared to others. And hopefully, I'm hoping I can inspire the women to submit more technical talks, because those are important too. But careers, they are always the most many. So I would say if you're submitting in terms of career, just find something that really resonates with you, like your own story, but also unique. Because if you talk about, let's say, moving from an individual contributor to manager, or let's see how you climb the ladder, I think many people submit those kinds of talks. So think out of the box. How about if you don't get accepted 2 times, how about you submit a technical talk?
Yeah, I'm so here for that. More technical talks. And that's something that you do all of the time. You're now very comfortable doing that. I want to explore that further because a lot of people can learn from you. What advice can you share to folks who are more than capable of doing an amazing technical talk, but they're holding themselves back? That inner imposter is creeping on the shoulder, and there's those moments of self-doubt.
How I started giving tech talks is I was doing webinars. And what I was doing is I was teaching other women how to code mobile. And that's what made me stronger and feel comfortable, because then in the webinars, I would write small slide decks, and then we would walk through what I was going to do. And then we would start the coding, and then people would follow along. And I think that really helped me and build my technical speaking skills. But one thing that I want to say is that there's not time that I think that I'm perfect. No. I always mention like, hey, feel free to correct me even after I even mention something that wasn't correct, because nobody is perfect. So I think the way we need to approach tech talks is nobody is there to judge you. Nobody is there to say you're not technical enough. No. I think people want to learn and want to hear from you. The funny thing is that in most of my places where I've spoken, especially in tech talks, which is what I do most, it's always men coming to my talks. Like I remember one time I was in Berlin and I was giving a talk in the DroidCon. It's a pretty big conference for 100 engineers from around the world. And there was one lady from South Africa. She came from South Africa and she said, I follow you and I wanted to be the first one in your session. My session had not even started. And I was like, oh my God, one person came. I was so happy. I was like, if nobody comes, I'm okay. I will teach this one person. But funny enough, people came and it was almost full, and I couldn't believe it that all these people came to hear me speak. Now, the ratio of men to women, it was bad for sure. So it's not something that, but it's already that bad out there that we don't have so many women in the tech industries. So if we continue doing more tech talks, my advice would be, I think we'll encourage more women to feel comfortable even joining the tech industry and feel comfortable even giving technical talks. We don't have to always talk about careers or just be in panels. No.
It's that importance of role models. And look, every talk is different. I understand that. But do you have a specific format or checklist that you follow, you keep in front of you when you're building these talks that others can take inspiration from?
This is a good one. So what I do is I work every time, let's say, on Android. But right now, I have a different role where I don't do a lot of coding in Android. I do now a lot of APIs, a lot of overseeing, and also a lot of, a lot of just the structure, right? And one of the things that I've done for my Android talks is that every time I went and worked on something and it was a little bit hard and it was new, I would try to see how I did it, and then I would write it down in steps. And I think that's what motivates me to write a talk on. So what I'll do is I'll say, this one was pretty tough. What can I make this a topic? For instance, this one I did on data store because I worked on data store and I thought, wow, it's pretty cool. People are still using other things like, let's say, shared preferences. And so we can migrate from using shared preferences to start using data store. And that's how the talk was born. And I submitted the proposal to where talks are, and it was accepted. So I was traveling everywhere talking about that. But normally what I try to do is try to make 2 talks so that I don't repeat myself over and over, like 2 talks or sometimes 3. And then the other time would be maybe there's a new API because I'm an expert. So maybe that also helps a little bit because as an expert also you get to review a lot of APIs that are not released to developers yet. So they're released to experts before they can be released to developers. So as an expert, once I go and start playing with an API, for instance, now I've been playing with the Camera API, which is the Camera X for the Android operating system. I can write a talk based on that and build and show people how I was able to build. Because when I was testing, I did that. Literally, like that's how you test the API. Like how easy is it to build as a developer? So I would say those are my tricks and hacks.
Oh, I love that. And do you still get nervous when you go to do a talk?
I think now, no, because I've spoken to now almost 40 conferences, so it's not, I am no longer nervous. But I used to get nervous until I started thinking, okay, why am I nervous? Do I think people are going to judge me? Like I said, I always mention I'm not perfect. I will mess up.
That's all part of the journey though, right? We learn when things go wrong.
Yeah, and the other thing is that one of the other things that I've done over the years is that once I deliver a talk, I know it's cringy, and I know I've discussed this with the speakers, and I ask them, do you watch your talk again? And most of them say no. I think for me, I do, because what I do is that it's not more of criticizing myself, but more of, okay, I said this, what can I do better next time? Being not hard to yourself is very important too. Like, that's how you improve anyway, because if you don't know your delivery style, how are you going to ever improve, right?
Yeah, we are never the finished article, always space to improve.
Yeah, so feel comfortable to just go back and watch your talks and see. I mean, unlike this talk is freestyling. I don't have to think about the technical side of it, but when I go back to my technical talks, I listen to it details by details, like, okay, did I say anything wrong? And if I did, how can I improve it next, right? Like, how can I ensure that next time that doesn't happen? But I don't sit there saying, oh my God, I wish I didn't do that. No, that's not what I do.
So important to reflect and to embrace feedback. We have to be proactive on that, on ourselves when it comes to public speaking. We need to treat it like a muscle, continually work on it, train it, perfect it. Madona, you're also a Google developer expert in Android. Can you share more about the journey of how you got to that point?
Yeah, so this is funny because I didn't even know that existed. And I think when people don't know that it exists. So what happened is that I'd worked as a Java developer for many years, like let's say around 5. And then I turned and became a mobile developer. And after I became a mobile developer, I think when I started doing the webinars, I met other amazing women. And I think I was speaking to this one lady and she told me, actually, there's a group of elite people. I think it was a big elite group. And I heard Google pays for them to travel and give talks. and also get to review the APIs. It's not just about traveling, but more of reviewing their APIs and just getting to know what's happening in your realm, which is the Android ecosystem. And I was like, really? Wow, that's interesting and amazing. That's an amazing community to be part of. But I didn't know the process of how you get in. The sad part is that it was Women Who Code that I was doing the webinars with, and now they've shut down. So I feel bad because they really helped me a lot, and I helped others too through the program. But here we are. But that said, after learning that, I was like, so how do you get in? I was like, I heard you have to be nominated by either an expert or the Google team has to reach out to you. But guess what happened? They reached out to me. I got a LinkedIn message and I thought it was a joke first when I saw it. But then I was like, wait, but this person was a lady. She was very nice. And I was like, wait, I think I know this lady. She's amazing. So I became a Women Tech Maker ambassador. And after that, I learned that actually there is a program. They wanted me to become an expert because they realized that also, again, the gap of women giving technical talks. And they nominated me. And then what happens in the expert program is that for you to qualify, you need to have worked in the Android ecosystem for more than 5 years. And also you go through a round of, I think mine was 4 interviews. So you have a community interview and then 2 technical interview. And then the last one is by a Googler who asks you again about your technical. Because, I mean, you can't be an expert of something that you can't even explain, right? So that's the interview process. And I think it might vary with the regions because I know there's the EMA regions, the MENA region, and then there's a North America region. But yeah, so that's what happened. And I ended up passing, and because I know a couple of people that have told me they've been recommended, but they've been rejected a couple of times. I was like, wow, it is competitive because when I look at the group, we only have from around the world, I think, how many experts? Maybe 1,000 experts. And that's in the field of, let's say, Rome, ML, AI, and Android, for instance.
Firstly, yeah, super sad about Women Who Code, actually pretty devastating. I was able to present to their community on multiple occasions and feel very grateful to have had that opportunity. And I know that they've helped you a lot along your journey as well. But it's quite the journey to get to the Google Developer Expert status. A lot of interviews. Since you've achieved this, what new skills would you say you've learned? How has it really enriched your career?
Being an expert has really, really elevated my career in so many ways. And like I mentioned before, one of the things I like to do is that being able to test the APIs in advance and work with them is really, really important because you get to have this knowledge before you can even start implementing it at your work or where you might use it. So I think that's one of the things that I would say that has really helped as being part of an expert and also being in the community. Like right now, I feel like if I travel to Barcelona, to Germany, to other places, Calgary, I have people that know me and I have family there just because they've invited me there to speak. And it's a network and a community that I can't take granted of. So there's pretty major benefits. You get to learn and also grow your network.
So there's learning, you're meeting new people, and of course you get to fuel that curiosity that you have. Madona, lastly, knowing what you now know in your career, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Be kind to yourself. I mean, nobody's going to cheerlead for you unless you cheerlead for yourself. So you're your own cheerleader. So please be kind to yourself. And hey, it's okay to not be where you want to be at that particular time, because remember, don't look at Madona and say Madona is doing this, Madona has written a book, Madona is speaking. We all have different paths and nobody's path is linear. Now just follow your own path and be kind to yourself. It works out. So just be patient.
That is your drop the mic moment right there. Seriously. Thank you so much, Madona, for your time. We've loved welcoming you as a guest on our Equal Inspired podcast.
Thank you so much, and talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to today's episode, and we hope you're feeling inspired. If you are, please feel free to like, share, subscribe, and join us on our mission to create a diverse, inclusive, and equitable universe. This podcast is brought to you by Equal IT, a mission-driven business working to diversify tech teams through refined talent acquisition, complemented by diversity and inclusion consulting. As an Azure Heroes inclusive leader, we aim for teams to cultivate a strong sense of belonging and equity. Find us on Twitter and LinkedIn. We welcome your feedback, questions, and would love to hear from you. Join us next time on Equal Inspired.